I want you to picture um, a highly specific but like painfully universal scenario. You are sitting in this massive cross-departmental meeting,
Oh, I know exactly where this is going.
right? Or maybe you are in the middle of a really intense, high-stakes conversation with your partner, and the discussion is just going in circles.
Yeah, completely stuck.
Exactly. And suddenly you see something with absolute clarity, like a toxic dynamic or a fatal flaw in the project plan, or just this massive unspoken reality.
Aw.
And you just say it. You drop the truth bomb right on the table. And instead of everyone pausing and saying, wow, thank you so much for pointing that out, you just saved us.
The room just gets incredibly, suffocatingly tense.
Yes. People are suddenly fascinated by their shoes. And then later, you are pulled aside by a manager or a friend and told what you said was inappropriate or that you were being difficult.
You were just being too much.
Oh, my absolute personal favorite, too much. If you are nodding your head right now or maybe feeling your blood pressure spike a little bit, you have experienced the core paradox we are unpacking today.
It is a profound contradiction to navigate, to be honest. I mean, we live in a culture that ostensibly worships the idea of authenticity. You cannot log onto social media or sit through a corporate retreat without hearing about it.
Oh, it is everywhere. Radical transparency, vulnerability, living your truth.
Right, right.
The ultimate modern branding exercise. But today's deep dive is about the dark side of that. Our mission is to unpack what our sources call the honest too soon phenomenon.
Which is such a great phrase.
It really is, and we've pulled together this incredibly fascinating stack of materials for this. We are looking at recent sociological studies on gender norms, deep corporate behavioral research, and even translations of ancient spiritual texts to understand how truth-telling actually works.
And we should probably be really clear up front. This is not a debate about whether the truth itself actually matters.
No, absolutely not. For this conversation, we are assuming the thing you said in that meeting was completely factually correct.
What we are doing today is a deep exploration of power. We are looking at who actually gets to decide when the ground is ready for a truth to be spoken.
So to kick us off, what's fascinating in the source material is that when people object to you having bad timing, they're almost never objecting to the actual content of what you said.
No, they aren't debating your data at all. They're objecting to an absence of permission. You basically spoke out of turn.
Right. So let's look at the mechanics of that permission. Because our corporate and sociological sources actually lay out a very specific, like unwritten checklist.
They really do. They break down how truth-telling operates as a highly strict gatekeeping mechanism in our social systems.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because reading this, it felt like playing a bizarre board game where you hold the winning card, but the rules dictate you can only play it if the person currently winning gives you a nod first.
That is a brilliant analogy. The social system essentially demands a rigid sequence. And first on that checklist, you have to establish sufficient rapport. You cannot just walk into a space and point out a flaw. You have to spend months warming everybody up, proving you are, one of them.
And second, and this is crucial for corporate environments, an uncomfortable truth is often only acceptable if the appropriate authority figure voices the idea first.
Wait, hold on. So if I point out a major strategic flaw, I am a disruptor or not a team player.
Exactly.
But if I wait 6 months for the boss to vaguely suggest the strategy might need a pivot, and then I agree with them, suddenly I am insightful.
You're suddenly a genius.
Yeah.
And it seems entirely about protecting ego, not about uncovering the truth.
It is entirely about ego and hierarchy. The sequence protects the hierarchy.
Uh-huh.
Third on the checklist is that enough time has to have passed for the statement to feel historical rather than present.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Right. It is so much easier for a group to digest, hey, we made a massive mistake last year, than we are making a massive mistake right now.
The distance makes it safe.
Exactly. And finally, the speaker has to have demonstrated enough social deference. They have to have bowed to the group norms enough times to be trusted with the speaking of hard things.
I've tried to think of a good way to visualize this while reading through the behavioral research, and it struck me that a social group is essentially acting like a biological organism.
Oh, like an immune system.
Yes, has an immune system, and an uninvited truth, even if it is literally a cure for a disease the group has, is immediately treated as a foreign virus.
That is a perfect way to look at it. And what does an immune system do? It attacks.
Right. The group's white blood cells, which in this case are tone policing, HR complaints, maybe passive-aggressive emails, they immediately swarm the truth teller.
Just to neutralize the threat and maintain homeostasis.
Exactly. This system doesn't care if the virus was actually trying to save its life. It only cares that it wasn't recognized.
Precisely. And when the white blood cells attack, the resulting punishments, social rejection, being labeled as aggressive or naive, they are not corrections of a factual error.
They're enforcements of the sequence.
Yeah. Yes, they are the system's way of saying, you did not have the social capital to buy that moment. Timing, therefore, is the real currency of permitted speech.
But if timing is a currency used by permission, then we have to look at who society historically bankrupts before they even walk into the room.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Because the sociological research in our stack makes it blatantly obvious that this currency is not distributed equally. Which brings us directly to the gender dynamics of the honest too soon phenomenon.
The source texts are unequivocal about this. This accusation lands incredibly disproportionately on women,
Yeah.
and specifically on women who exist outside of what the text calls the normative performance of agreeable femininity.
Normative performance of agreeable femininity. Let's translate that for a second. The researchers basically mean playing the smiling, non-threatening, endlessly accommodating team player, right?
Exactly. The woman who doesn't constantly soften her language with, I think, or maybe it's just me, but
Right.
let's look at the exact same truth delivered at the exact same time with the exact same phrasing. When a man speaks an uncomfortable truth early in a meeting, how is he coded by the room?
Oh, he is a leader? He's direct, he is confident, he knows his own mind and cuts through the noise.
But when a woman does the identical thing, the room's immune system attacks her differently. She is coded as cold.
Or presumptuous.
Right. She is told she lacks social intelligence. It is the same truth and the same timing, but it receives entirely opposite social readings.
This pervasive expectation that women should endlessly soften, preface, apologize, and essentially earn the right to their own observations before speaking them out loud, it's just baked in.
It's a structural feature of how we communicate, and the sources point out a specific group that faces this friction most acutely. The text refers to them as goddess-adjacent women.
Yes, I wanted to get into this concept. It's so profound.
We are talking about women who carry a kind of inherent spiritual or personal authority. They speak from a deep, embodied knowing rather than leaning on a PowerPoint deck or some credentialed expertise.
Think of the woman in your life who can just walk in, read the energetic dynamic of a room perfectly, and calmly name the elephant sitting in the corner.
Exactly, and the text notes that her truthfulness is never read as epistemically neutral.
Okay, epistemically neutral meaning people don't just hear the facts she's saying. They automatically assume she has some kind of hostile ulterior motive for saying them.
Right. The group does not just say, oh, here's a piece of data we should consider. They read her intervention through a lens of disruption and excess ego.
Like, who does she think she is?
Exactly. The system looks at her and essentially says, who do you think you are to just bypass the chain of command and name the reality?
I want to play devil's advocate and push back on this a little bit, though.
Okay, go for it.
Because I can hear you listening to this right now. Maybe you manage a large team and you're thinking, but wait, isn't telling someone their delivery was harsh just a way of asking for basic social grace?
That's the common argument, yeah.
Right. If you want people to actually listen to your truth and change their behavior, shouldn't you package it in a way they can digest? Isn't that just emotional intelligence?
It sounds incredibly reasonable, doesn't it? But if we look at the psychological mechanisms at play, that argument is exactly how the trap snaps shut. The source material identifies this specific response as a mechanism of retroactive gaslighting.
Gaslighting is a heavy term. Walk us through how that actually works in a human brain. Why does a group do this?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it comes down to cognitive dissonance. You speak a truth that is fundamentally unwelcome because it requires the group to change or admit a failure.
And the human brain hates that.
It hates it. But the group also doesn't want to look unreasonable or foolish by denying a stark, obvious fact. So to resolve that discomfort, they redirect the controversy entirely.
Oh, okay.
Rather than addressing the content of what you said, the response redirects to the form. They attack your tone, they attack your delivery, they say your timing was off.
So it is a self-soothing mechanism. They get to say, I would love to engage with your brilliant point, but unfortunately your tone was just so aggressive that I simply cannot. It lets them off the hook for doing the hard work.
Precisely. You are given this false promise. You are told, perhaps, if you had just waited, if you had been a bit gentler, if you had built more consensus over the last 3 months, then the thing you said might have been received.
But that's a lie, isn't it?
It is false logic dressed up as social wisdom, because the truth is, the mythical right moment of reception was never going to arrive.
Never. The truth itself was the problem, but admitting that makes the group look bad, so the truth teller is made into the problem.
By displacing the controversy from the content to the timing, the system gets to appear perfectly reasonable, polite, and professional, while still entirely avoiding the reality you brought up.
It's a brilliant, insidious defense mechanism. And it is so damaging because it leaves you, the speaker, completely twisted in knots.
You really do. You walk away doubting your own sanity.
You lie awake, asking yourself, was I too soon? Should I have waited? Was I too harsh? But the real question you should be holding, the question this deep dive wants you to ask yourself next time this happens, is too soon for whom and why?
Right. Who actually benefits from you waiting? Does the project benefit, or does the manager who doesn't want to admit a mistake benefit?
Exactly. But this causal chain brings up a really important counterpoint, because if we look at the translations of ancient spiritual texts in our source stack, almost every major tradition preaches the value of patience.
They do, yeah. They talk extensively about right timing.
So I have to wonder, is there ever a genuinely valid ethical reason to hold back your truth?
This raises an important question because this is where the source material gets incredibly nuanced and fascinating. You are referring to the concept of right speech at the right time. The Greeks called it kairos.
Yes, kairos, the opportune moment.
Right, the supreme moment.
And you see this ancient concept weaponized all the time now in modern therapy speak or corporate HR training.
Mhm.
It just wasn't the right kairos. You didn't prepare the ground.
Yeah, the sacred traditions say you must wait until the listener is ready.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when your manager tells you to wait until the quarterly review to bring up a toxic dynamic, they are fundamentally using that ancient concept to shut you down.
Which is how we have completely distorted ancient wisdom. We have taken kairos and flattened it into a modern doctrine of corporate politeness.
Right.
But a closer reading of these spiritual traditions complicates that weaponization entirely. The sources give some amazing specific examples here.
Oh, break down the Sufi tradition example for us. I love that one.
Okay, so in Sufi traditions, a spiritual teacher absolutely considers timing. But they do not wait for a student's comfort, they wait for the student's openness.
Wow, those are two vastly different psychological states.
Entirely different. Comfort is the ego feeling safe and unchallenged. Openness is the soul being ready to shatter, reorganize, and learn.
Okay, so a manager asking you to wait is protecting their own comfort. They aren't waiting for a moment of openness. That is a massive distinction.
And the Zen tradition operates similarly. Think of the Zen koan.
Right, the riddle.
Yeah, the koan is an unexpected utterance, an unresolvable paradox delivered by the master. The entire psychological point of the koan is that it arrives before the student's mind is ready for it.
The disruption itself is the mechanism of awakening.
Exactly. If the Zen master waited for the student to be comfortable with the paradox, enlightenment would never happen. The friction is the point.
The sources also brought in Saraswati, the Hindu goddess of knowledge and speech. And the text notes that she does not wait in the hallway to be formally welcomed into a space by the authorities.
No, she simply speaks.
And the space is forced to reorganize itself around the sound of her truth.
When you look at these examples together, you realize that what was once a profound teaching about the quality of spiritual attention has been degraded into a gatekeeping device for maintaining the status quo.
So synthesizing all of this, what does this all mean? It means true right timing, in its original potent sense, has absolutely nothing to do with waiting until the listener is sitting comfortably with a cup of tea, ready to validate you.
Not at all.
It has to do with speaking from a place of such profound clear-sightedness that the word lands exactly where it needs to land, whether the social ground was politely prepared or not.
And if you commit to living and speaking that way, it inevitably creates a new archetype of person. You become someone who constantly arrives before the world is ready for them.
The archetype of the premature truth teller. It's a strange, almost lonely existential position to be in. You are essentially living ahead of the context.
It is a form of temporal displacement. Think about the individuals throughout history, scientists, activists, artists, whose truth-telling was most viciously condemned by the social immune system of their present moment.
Very often, they are completely vindicated in retrospect.
We build statues to them 50 years later. But as the text points out, they aren't vindicated because the world magically got kinder.
No, they are vindicated because the culture finally caught up. The culture finally assembled the frame of reference required to receive the truth that was always already there.
Exactly. So the honest too soon controversy isn't actually a social failure on the part of the speaker. It is a diagnostic measurement.
Oh, that's good.
It measures the exact gap between where the speaker exists in their comprehension and where the surrounding culture is currently stuck.
Okay, this is all philosophically empowering, but we have to anchor this back to your reality as a listener.
Huh?
How do you actually navigate this in your day-to-day life?
Because nobody wants to be a reckless human wrecking ball.
Right, destroying every relationship or job they have in the name of unfiltered truth. How do we find the balance?
The source material offers a vital framework for this. It draws a stark line between the social policing of your timing, which we've been critiquing, and the internal ethics of strategic delay.
It calls this the difference between sovereignty and capitulation.
Yes.
I love this framing. Let's make it concrete. Imagine you are working at a company and you realize a major new initiative is built on completely faulty data. It's going to crash and burn, but everyone is currently celebrating the launch.
A classic scenario.
If you use strategic delay here, what does that look like?
Strategic delay, when chosen freely, is an act of sovereignty. You might assess the launch party and realize that speaking right now in front of the CEO and clients won't just create discomfort. It will trigger such a massive defensive response that the truth will be permanently buried.
So you choose to hold it.
Right. You schedule a private one-on-one with the lead engineer the next morning and deliver it then. You are in control of the delay because you want the truth to survive.
You're delaying out of care for the outcome. But capitulation is totally different.
Capitulation is delaying because the external system terrifies you into it. You stay quiet because you know your manager doesn't want to hear it, and you tell yourself, I'll wait for a better time.
But you know full well that the system will perpetually find a new reason why it's too soon.
Exactly. You surrender your truth to their comfort.
To help us tell the difference in the heat of the moment, the sources offer what they call a living archive practice. It's 5 questions of integral honesty, and rather than just listing them, let's apply them to that exact scenario with the faulty data.
Let's do it.
You are sitting at your desk, agonizing over whether to send the email, calling it out. Question 1, is this true?
This grounds you in reality. Are you looking at hard proof that the data is faulty, or are you just feeling resentful because you weren't put in charge of the project?
Right, you have to separate factual reality from emotional venting.
Exactly.
Let's say you have the proof. Question 2, is this mine to speak?
This is about proximity and authority. Did you discover this data flaw because it's your department, or are you overstepping into a colleague's domain where they are already quietly working on a fix?
Let's assume it's your job to catch this. Question 3, and this one is a gut punch. Who benefits from my silence here?
Oh, this cuts right through the corporate fog. If your silence maintains a toxic status quo or allows a manager to collect a bonus while the company slowly bleeds, that is a glaring indicator that waiting is capitulation.
Your silence is actively subsidizing someone else's dysfunction.
Exactly.
Question 4 asks, what is the cost of waiting versus the cost of speaking?
You have to weigh the real-world fallout. Yes, speaking up today shatters the fragile piece of the launch. It will be incredibly awkward. But waiting 6 months allows a deeper rot to set in, potentially costing people their jobs.
And finally, question 5, the ultimate test of sovereignty. Am I choosing the moment, or is the moment being withheld from me indefinitely?
A sovereign speaker knows the difference between strategically waiting for the right morning to send the email and being indefinitely silenced by a corporate structure that is terrified of change.
The text wraps this entire framework up with a beautifully striking distinction. It says that the honest too soon speaker, at their absolute best, is not careless. They are uncontainable.
Carelessness is a disregard for the impact of your words. You don't care who gets hurt. Being uncontainable is entirely different.
How so?
It means the truth you are holding is simply too vital, too necessary for the health of the whole, to be trapped inside the artificial, ego-driven boundaries of polite timing. There is a profound distinction there.
We have covered a tremendous amount of ground today, from corporate immune systems to Zen koans. But the core shift I want you to take away is this.
Yeah.
The next time someone pulls you aside and tells you that your timing was bad, or that you were too much for naming the reality in the room, I want you to consider the possibility that your bad timing was actually a radical act of integrity.
Sometimes the most sovereign, powerful thing you can do is to be the exact virus that forces the system to finally begin its reorganization.
Think back to that meeting we talked about at the very beginning. You weren't broken. You just held the winning card, and you decided the game needed to end.
And as we close, there is one final, entirely new implication of this to consider from the text. Think about the artificial intelligence systems we are currently building.
Oh, wow, right.
These models are being trained on vast data sets of human interaction, heavily skewed toward corporate communication, HR guidelines, and polite, consensus-driven internet forums.
Right. They learn how we speak.
Exactly. So if timing and politeness are the gatekeepers of truth in those data sets, are we accidentally programming our future technology to also reject reality if it arrives on us too soon?
Are we hardwiring the retroactive gaslighting mechanism into the algorithms that will run our future?
What does it mean to be someone whose truth perpetually arrives before its moment? And how do you inhabit that reality without losing yourself to either total silence or lingering bitterness?
Now, that is a terrifying and brilliant question to leave off on. If we can't handle the uncontainable truth, why would our machines? Take that thought with you into your next conversation, your next cross-departmental meeting, or your next moment of holding a truth that feels too heavy to carry alone. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the sources, and we will catch you next time.